Hello, everybody, and welcome to QuickBooks. Yay, we're finally here. So, this is going to be the introduction to QuickBooks. So, there's a few things that you need to know, especially with the certification exam. Most of the questions are going to be asking you questions that are based off of what is QuickBooks and how do you use it. So, you will get asked questions about the product lines, which ones are these, which ones are those, okay? So, and there will be a few accounting questions, okay? But well, let's just worry about that in a second. But however, this is just us exposing to you for QuickBooks for the first time. For those who are familiar with QuickBooks, you guys are the experts at this. For those who've never seen QuickBooks, this is your time to actually take a look at what you can do with QuickBooks. So, with that being said, here are a few topics that you will learn in chapter 1. So if you've done your reading, you guys are kind of familiar with some of these things, kind of not, but I'll go ahead and introduce QuickBooks to you. So again, I have here the program. It's not fully opened yet because I need to have one thing. I need to have some kind of file that's created in order to be able to access these files. So I'll talk about this once I actually get into it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to QuickBooks and exactly which book you're going to be dealing with in this PowerPoint. So again, welcome to QuickBooks, and you guys are going to be looking at Premiere 2018, all right? Chapter 1, Introduction. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is I'm going to introduce you to the book. So this is the book that you're going to be testing on, and this is the one that's going to be primarily what the certification exam is going to be mocked after, or this is the book that tests you in order for you to get your certification for QuickBooks Premiere 2018. Okay, so we'll talk about the different versions, the different products lines, and as well as what you can, what is there to offer. So I want you to be very, very, very careful, especially if you're downloading the 30-day trial. You most likely are going to be downloading either the 2020 or the 2021 version. So there is a few differences, but I want you to know you guys are being tested on QuickBooks Premiere 2018. Okay, so I will teach you a few slight differences between the programs because I have QuickBooks Pro 2019. All right. So with that being said, but I will be teaching directly out from this book. So when you guys are completely done with this program, you guys should have all of the student portable files for you to be able to practice everything that we taught in class, and you have the book to guide you along the way. Okay? Now, of course, with this, it's going to include a in-class case study, and that's going to be Academy Photography. So we're going to be opening a little corporation, and it's going to be a photo service, as well as we offer to sell certain packages. So we are taking Academy Photography is going to be directly from the book. Okay. And then, of course, after that, once you receive your book and you guys are actually going to start downloading it into your computer, this is what you guys need to know, because in your first chapter, it tells you the first thing is which ones are the product lines that are available to QuickBooks. Okay? In 2018, you have the online version, the Pro, QuickBooks Premiere, QuickBooks Accounting, and the last one is called Enterprise. Now, a slight difference is if you go onto QuickBooks.com, you're going to see that some of these programs don't exist anymore, and that there are other programs that do exist. But because you guys are learning the 2018 and you're going to be tested on the 2018, you guys are required to know that there are 5 total types of product lines that QuickBooks offers. And it's going to be the 5 right here: Online, Pro, Premier, Accountant, and Enterprise. For you guys, it's Enterprise Solutions, all right? However, there are a few things that are actually different between the two. There's a desktop version and a online version, and we'll talk about that in a second. But did you know Premier and Enterprise Solutions are actually used for industry specific businesses, all right? Because these kinds of product lines are actually for the major corporations that need a lot of files and that deal with more than one employee or deal with more than one customer. They have almost a million to infinite amount of lists, and we'll talk about what those mean. So as a sole proprietor, which is this particular class, if your business is very small, Pro should be sufficient for you, or even online. However, you guys are studying Premier. Premier and Enterprise Solutions are for the major, bigger corporations, or if your business is a medium-sized business, but you're not incorporated yet, then yes, you may use Premier to do your business, okay? But if you're a small business, Pro should be sufficient enough, all right? And as we gradually go up in each product line, they get more and more expensive, and we'll talk about that as well, okay? So again, you have the desktop version, and then you have the online version. Okay, the desktop version is pretty straightforward. It's on a local hard drive, meaning it's on an actual computer, laptop, it's stationary, it's usually at the office. All right, and we'll talk about the importance about having QuickBooks at the office. All right, we'll talk about that later on in the chapters. But it's very important that you keep your QuickBooks at the office. Second thing is that if you're dealing with online, there's a little flexibility that you can do with online. Obviously, it's going to have a subscription, but the thing is that you can travel wherever you are, and as long as you have some kind of internet, whether it's data or whether it's Wi-Fi, you can travel and be able to update your QuickBooks at any given time, and you have the nice little cloud to save all of your data. So we'll talk about the difference between the two. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with online first. Now, of course, these are the 2020 versions. This is going to be offered as, again, each section is going to have a particular package. Okay, the most basic one that's going to allow you to do the basic functions or have the least amount of entries you could place in, or we call them items, is going to be obviously your self-employed, right? And as you gradually go up, these become monthly subscriptions, and of course, depending on how big your company is and how much space you need, it's going to be, advanced would be for the corporations that are on the go, that travel a lot, that needs to do their expenses on the daily. Okay, so as you progress in each one, or if you choose which one, it's always going to be based upon your type of business. Okay, but the great thing about online is it's user friendly, and you can travel wherever you want to go and update your company file at any given time. So that is going to be the benefit of online. However, there are dangers to that, of course. There's people that can hack you, but we know that Intuit is a very secure, and when you pay for the advance, it's obviously going to be very secure. It's just based on whether you are secure entering in your company files. And we'll talk about that because you will be holding confidential information such as, phone numbers and addresses of your customers as well as your vendors and as well as your employees, especially your employees. They are going to contain even more confidential information such as their social security numbers. So it's very important that you're very careful using QuickBooks, and it's highly recommended to actually use a desktop version. Okay? And that's what we're going to be talking about. You guys are going to be learning the desktop version, which is going to be Premiere 2018 version. All right? However, here, I couldn't find a picture of the 2018 version, but I was able to, they're essentially, these things are going to be the same. You still have your Pro, Premier, and your Enterprise. All right? These are the three basic desktop versions of QuickBooks that are available. Even if you go to intuit.com right now or quickbooks.com, you will see that these are the three desktops downloads that are available to everyone. All right, you have the Pro, Premier, and Enterprise. Okay, and each one, and I'll talk about the difference between each one and what they offer to you. Okay, any questions so far?
So how can we put some QuickBooks in our computer? We're gonna download it.
Yes, you guys, because you guys are gonna get the book. What's gonna happen is you're gonna contact the person, or they're gonna, well, you fill out your information. They're gonna send you an email, and you're going to request a specific book. You remember to check your email and read it very carefully because some students, they apply for the wrong one and they have to go back and forth with the vendor to tell them, I need to download the QuickBooks Premiere 2018 desktop version. Okay? And they will give you an online link to download it. Now, of course, these kinds of books, you can have them either download it via internet, or you can actually download it via disk. They do still offer the disk on the program on the disk for you to download it into your computer. Now, again, the school's gonna offer you the online version that you can download online, not QuickBooks Online. The platform that you download your software is going to be online. Okay, so again, and we'll talk about that when you guys get your books because I know that a lot of students, it's very tricky to download the book, and the formatting could be a little different. So I'll be there to help you download it once I get the okay that you have the books. Okay? Any other questions?
Mhm.
Okay.
So so this is a program like just like Excel like that.
Yes, it is an actual program, correct. Like it's a software. We call it software.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
When do we expect the books?
It's supposed to be arriving today, but I just texted my coworker to see if it's there right now, and she has not confirmed with me yet. Okay. So you may, that's why I'm saying you may get the book either Thursday or Friday, but for sure this week. Okay. So
When you
again,
say a book,
go
when
ahead.
you say a book, when you say a book, you mean to say the download uh QuickBooks, not the actual book.
No, you are going to be picking up the book, and in the very back of the book will be your actual download.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So now we're going to talk about, well, what are the differences between the desktop? So we already understand what online is, right? We understand that online is something that you can utilize on the go. This one is more stationary, right? You need to go into the office, or you need to either be at some kind of local hard drive, right? Whether it's a computer at home or whether it's a laptop. So I'm going to tell you the difference between the Pro, Premier, and the Enterprise. All right, so the first one is Pro. Again, Pro is meant for small businesses. It can only hold up to 14,500. Now, these are 2020 versions, okay? For the 2018, Premier only holds 14,500, all right? But I just want to make sure that you guys understand this, because as time progresses and the program, improves over time, and the more things that, are necessary, they start to upgrade and integrate and everything else, right? They start integrating like flexibility of downloading into other programs. And they start, having more space and more options, of course. But for 2020, right now, Pro can hold up to 14,500 items, meaning that means every person, every customer, every vendor, every employee, every item that you sell, every account name that you have is going to be considered an item, okay, or a list. So understand that, okay? So that means, with Pro, you think that 14,500 is too little? Well, you can always upgrade to Premier, okay? But even with a small business or even a medium-sized business, 14,500 is actually very, it's decent for a small business, all right? And it depends on how big you are, right? Do you sell 1 million items? If you do, then yes, then Premier is definitely something you want to look at. But if you're a very small business and you only sell maybe 5 or 6 items, and you only have so-and-so amount of employees or customers, then 14,500 is pretty much sufficient for you, all right? And you can only have 1 or 3 users have access to QuickBooks Pro, okay? All right, so then that is Pro. So Pro is very limited on what you can do. Whereas Premier, it's for small or even medium-sized businesses, and it can hold up to 1 million items. So again, of course, every single program that you're going to go upgrade into is going to kind of get bigger in size. So here, this one holds up to 1 million items, all right? And you can have up to 3 to 5 users at the same time, okay? And they have over 150 plus industry-specific reports, meaning, let's say, of course, an industry. Industry is what you belong into, such as the food industry, the fashion industry, or the, the clothing industry. You have the makeup industry or the beauty industry, right? So you belong in a specific industry when you apply your specific company when you create your company file. That's what the industry that you're going to select yourself in. So once you belong into a certain industry, you're gonna have you're gonna have about 150 plus industry reports that you can do based on your industry. So again, if you belong into the music industry, yours is definitely gonna look a lot different than someone who's in the fashion industry, right? You're gonna have different things that may, as far as profit wise or as far as sale wise, right? They're going to be looking a lot different. And what QuickBooks Premier can do is it can help you facilitate those kind of reports and make it easier for you to understand, especially if you're, and also it makes it easier to compare to someone else who's in the same industry. Okay. Another thing that Premiere can do is they can do forecasting and they can do mobile tracking. So this is actually pretty interesting, right? So you can do flexibility, right? If you don't want to use online. The cool thing about the desktop version, it allows you to track things using your phone. All right. And that's what mobile tracking is. It's not technically using online, but it is where you can access your files using your phone and being able to, take pictures of your receipts, right? That's very important that you have source documents to back up your transactions. Having proof of a transaction. So that's what mobile tracking does. It allows you to use your phone and be able to track all your expenses on the go as well. And when you come back to the desktop, you just upload it into QuickBooks and it will, wherever you place it, it's going to update it automatically. Okay. So that's the cool thing about Premiere. You get a few more things that you can do, especially with forecasting. Forecasting, you can, make projections of what will happen in the future. Okay, especially if you're in the industry where you're selling items, right? You can make predictions on, well, what happens if I do this, or if I make renovations, X, Y, Z. Okay. And then enterprise. Enterprise is meant for corporations or extremely large companies, right? And it can hold up to more than 1 million items, okay? So they're almost infinite amount of items, okay? And then it can have up to 30 users simultaneously. Of course, with major corporations, right, you're going to have your accountants, you're going to have your sales representatives, you're going to have your advertising team, your promotion team. You're going to have a bunch of people that need access to QuickBooks so then they can, update the books at the same time. So that's what these users mean, okay? So you can have up to 30 users using the same program, same file at the same time. So that is what's really cool about that. They also have more than 150 advanced reports, so beyond the industry, of course, because you're looking at a corporate level. Corporate level will be having a lot more other details, right? And then, of course, they have forecasting and mobile tracking. So you have a vast difference between the three. But what makes sense to you and what you need for your company is going to be based on what you decide on what you think the company needs. So if you're a small sole proprietor, most likely Pro is all you need. You may not need to forecast. You may not need those industry practices because you're a sole proprietor. You're very small when it comes to a company. Premiere would be ideal for just, in general, if you just need that extra space. But again, it is for small or medium-sized businesses. So small LLCs or small partnerships could most likely use a Premiere. And then, of course, if you are looking into becoming a corporation, then, enterprise is going to be where you want to go, right? Any questions between the differences between the 3 desktop versions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes,
Granted, you start with a Pro. Can you upgrade yourself to the Premier?
absolutely.
Okay,
And I'll show you how to do that.
thank you.
It's at the end of this chapter. Okay? So yes, if you are a small company and you start progressing and you become bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you become incorporated, then yes, you can move through each one. Okay? Now, this is what I need to talk to you guys about because this is very important. this is going to be the F2 key function. And what does the F2 key function do? So when you open up your program and you open up QuickBooks, you press the F2 key button and it will tell you the exact information that you need to know about the QuickBooks that you're currently using. So it's going to tell you the program that you're using, like the exact year with the exact product line. So it will tell you, are you using QuickBooks Pro? Are you using QuickBooks Premier? So this is really cool, especially when you're looking at the detailing into your QuickBooks. So it will actually tell you, okay, well, you're using, so this is what I used from my computer. I screenshot this. So here it tells me that I'm using QuickBooks Pro 2019. And then at the very right of it is going to give you like an R. The R represents the amount of updates you have done to your file. So of course, when you download a software program, they'll always give you like updates because, you know, for those who are avid users of QuickBooks, right? There's a forum that you can complain or say, you know, this part of the program is broken, all right? Or this part of the program is bugged. And what happens is they start issuing an update. So it's like a patch. It fixes the bug or fixes the problem. So when you do that, so every time you open QuickBooks, it's going to ask you, would you like to update to the newest update? All right. And when you do that, then that's where the R becomes either 1, 2, or even like 18. Okay. So that is what the title says there. It tells you the exact license number as well. Okay, so you obviously cannot use mine because it won't let you access it because I already have it on this computer. So, but it tells you the exact license code in case you do upgrade and you end up losing that license number. You can always get this number by pressing the F2 key button. Okay, and then it will even tell you the exact date you downloaded. So I've downloaded this in September of 2019. So I've had this for quite some time, all right? And then it will also give you details, right? If we move down to the bottom of the screen, it will give you details on what the file contains. As far as like right now, I don't have anything because this is when I just open up the file. But when we go ahead and go into, actually going into the student portable files that QuickBooks has provided us, or actually Sleater, the provider of the book, has provided us, it will give you lists and details on what the file contains, such as how many lists are there, how many names are there, how many items have you used up so far. So it's a really cool product information kind of thing here that you have here, that allows you to give you like a quick update on what you have and what have you used up so far. All right, and again, so R stands for release. So again, releases is basically just patches for the program. Now, do not confuse releases with actually upgrading the program to Premiere or Pro. That is an actual software upgrade, where these are called releases that just give you patches for the current software that you're using. All right? And yes. Okay, now here's another thing I would like for also you to know as well, is that QuickBooks allows you to access files that are up to 3 years prior. 3 years prior meaning the program-wise. As far as whether you're going from Pro to Premiere or Premiere to Pro, there are a few things that you can do. Now, every time you open up something, QuickBooks actually has the QuickBooks has advanced software where it can actually either pull information or integrate, or it could actually convert the file to the most updated version. Okay. Now, let's say I've been using QuickBooks for 10 years now, right? The last file I have is so far QuickBooks 2018, right? I have QuickBooks 2018. 2019, which is the one I have right now, can open 2018. It can open up to 3 years prior. So the 3 year, the least I can do is possibly QuickBooks 2016. Okay? Every year, QuickBooks has a brand new software. All right? And the changes between them, it could be slight, but if you actually experienced QuickBooks before, whether you've used it in the past, you know, as you progress, it makes it easier and easier and easier to execute a transaction. Okay? So again, with this little software, cool thing about the updating the files, right? So if you have, so since you guys are doing 2018, if you have QuickBooks 2015 and you upgrade it or you open it into the 2018, that means now that file is a 2018 version. That means if you go back to a 2015, it will not be able to open. All right, so you cannot reverse a conversion. You can only go forward. Okay, you can only go forward in time. You can't go back in time. Okay, and most companies, right? They always have that tendency to keep their company files, and it's actually you know, each file that you create, it can be very hefty, but one thing that you should do as a, you know, company is to keep those for any purposes, for reasons for taxation as well as for auditing purposes, right? You need to make sure that you properly save and lock up those files for those reasons, okay? In case you do get audited or you need to do an audit, okay? But with that, again, you can pull a QuickBooks file that was old from 2016 or something like that and put it into the future. But it can only go up back 3 years. It cannot go back before that. So if you have a 2010 QuickBooks version, unfortunately, you're not able to transfer that information. You would have to put everything in by hand. All right. All right. So any questions in regards to that?
I have a
So when
question.
Yes.
Uh, now I forgot. So it would like a 2016 file. If I open it today, well, 2019, it would automatically convert
It
to the
will.
current version. Is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But since you guys are doing 2018, that's even better for you because you can only go back three years. So you know, your last one that you could do is 2015 even. But yes, if you are familiar or you have used it before, you are able to convert it into a 2018. All right.
Okay.
Other things too, when it comes to converting or processing the files in there, you do have to also be careful on which program you're actually using, because if you are using a Premiere and you have Pro at home, you can lose a few things along the way, because when you convert it, Pro doesn't do everything that Premiere can do. So you may be limited on that, but you can utilize multiple softwares and multiple programs. You just have to be careful on what you can do. So if you at home you have Pro, but at work you have Premiere, you might not be able to execute the industry practice. I'm not industry practice, the industry reports, because you know Pro doesn't have that. So you want to be careful with that as well. Okay. But yes, as far as version wise, like year wise, you can do it every, you can do it, you can open up files that are 3 years old. Okay. So that also gives a reason why companies doesn't have to invest into QuickBooks every year because of this little flexibility here. You can just download it every 3 years because again, as you purchase the software, you know, it gets expensive and every year it doesn't really change. So, every year it does change, right? It gets more and more pricier as you go up every year, okay? But again, 2000, so the great thing about having the difference between them is the flexibility on utilizing them, okay? Again, and then companies, again, they're not required to upgrade to the latest and the greatest every year. So that's a bonus to major corporations because, you know, they don't want to pay too much money into softwares like these, even though it helps them so much. They, you know, they want to limit their costs. So if they can, you know, limit how many QuickBooks they can have every year, you know, that's a bonus. And yes, that's a pro for them. All right. So there's one more I didn't talk about. It's going to be the accountant. So what QuickBooks Accountant is, it's basically for when you go into tax. What accountant does is it can access all three files, either Pro, Premier, and Enterprise. They have the flexibility and it's mainly used for tax accountants or professional people who are in the industry where they're, you know, filing taxes for you, filing personal, business, whatever kind of tax they're doing. They have that special program that's able to pull information from a company, and it's flexible because it can pull either Pro, Premier, Enterprise, or even they can pull things from online. So that's the only difference between the different types of product lines. Okay. All right. Any other questions in regards to the QuickBooks lines? Okay. So the next part I'm going to be talking is going to be how accounting affects QuickBooks. Now, as I mentioned this yesterday, you absolutely do not need to know accounting in order to use QuickBooks, all right? Because the way and how simplistic QuickBooks does all of the accounting is behind the scenes. All right. And what I mean by behind the scenes is as we progress through the class, you're going to notice that I received a bill. All I have to do is type in the information and say I have a bill, right? So in the behind the scenes, which my accounting class knows that every time you receive a bill, it's going to affect your accounts payable, and it's going to also affect on what expenses that you've incurred. You don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is place it in like when you receive your bill, all you do is just place the information and say, I have a bill. So with that being said, you absolutely, again, do not need to have accounting experience or accounting knowledge in order to utilize QuickBooks. But it does help. And how does it help? It allows you to be able to figure out in case you're trying to enter in an entry, you can't figure it out why it's not working. Because you have the accounting background, you'd be able to fix the problem by saying, oh, okay, I can manually enter in a general journal entry and say, this is how I fixed my problem. So that is at an advantage to you for having an accounting background. But you absolutely do not need one because, again, whatever company that you worked for and that uses QuickBooks, they will tell you how they want you to enter in everything. So in that case, you wouldn't even need an accounting degree or any knowledge because the company is going to tell you this is how you do this, that's how you do this, that's all I want you to do. So again, it's an advantage for you for having an accounting background. All right. But the main goal of accounting is to understand, of course, how, you know, how the nature of the business actually works. So, of course, with that and how transactions affect the business. So that's all that's really happening here is that you want to make sure that that's what you want to do, or when you do accounting, that's the number one thing is you want to understand how a transaction affects the business, and that also applies to QuickBooks. Obviously, if you're having too many bills, you know, your business is not doing too great if you're not selling or having enough money flowing into the company. Okay, so again, with that, okay, we have to understand how the cash flows into the company and how the transaction where and how you distribute your cash, right? That's the main point of accounting, all right? But again, here we're looking into how money is flowing in and money flowing out. Same thing with QuickBooks, but you're going to understand it a lot easier. Okay, so again, every time, yes. So depending on how your company is, whether you're you are a merchandiser or a merchant, your business activity is merchandising. So you sell products. Obviously, you're gonna have sales, and you're gonna have to make those, you know, purchases of or expenses to purchase the inventory. So understanding that part is pretty much what you need to know for QuickBooks. It's just understanding how the transaction for a business typically works. Okay? But I'm also going to give you a few accounting 101 information because again, it is very important that you understand these basic information, right? So there are a total of 5 different account types. And you're gonna notice these 5 types when we enter in information into QuickBooks. You're gonna notice that you have your assets, liabilities, equity, income / revenues, right? I believe QuickBooks uses income, and you have your expenses. So again, your assets are going to be everything that you own. So your cash, your inventory, your furniture, your patents, those are everything that you have property over. You own it, all right? Same thing with the land or building itself. You own it, and that's an asset, okay? A liability is everything that you owe, whether you owe a credit card company, whether you owe other people, because when you notice that you go to a store and they offer you a store credit, that's considered you owing an account to someone else. So that's going to be considered liability. You're also going to owe the government when you are collecting sales tax, right? Or if you have employees, you're going to owe the government money because you have employees, so you have to pay their portion for having employees. So all their payroll taxes, all right? So liabilities is everything that you owe, whether it's a loan, things that do not belong to you, or that you made a purchase in advance, but they paid for you, so you technically owe them either some kind of money or so on and so forth. Okay? Equity is going to be the value of your company. All right? Equity is going to be what you either, depending on what kind of business you are, of course, if you are a sole proprietor or a partnership or something small, equity is going to be whatever you personally invested in, as well as is like your money. And then it's also the money, it's also going to be all of your revenues or your when you make your sale and your income, it's going to be everything that you reinvest into your company. So that's going to be your value of your company. Saying, again, if you've heard of net worth, that's exactly what it is. Your company is worth this much right now. Okay? If you are a corporation, you're going to have stockholders equity. All right. And what that is you're going to be releasing stocks. So people own a part of your company. And what they do is they invest their money into the company. So it's not your own personal money, it's whatever other people invest into the company. So that's going to be the value of the company. All right. Income slash revenues, okay, depending on what kind of activity you are, whether you do service, whether you do merchandising, or whether you're a manufacturer. The whole point of revenues and income is to sell an item, okay? Whether if you're a service, obviously you would sell your service. If you're a merchandiser, you would sell your products. And if you're a manufacturer, you create the product and sell it to the merchandisers. So revenues and income is whatever you sell and what you've profit in your company. And then lastly is going to be your expenses, which are anything that helps you operate your business. So for example, rent expense is going to be an expense that you have to incur every month, right? You have to pay the landlord in order to operate your business, okay? And another key thing that you should know is the accounting equation, which is going to be your assets are going to equal your total liabilities plus your equity, okay? So again, assets equal liabilities plus equity. This is going to be crucial, especially when we understand how to do our financial statements, because our balance sheet, which we'll talk about in chapter 6 when we do our reports, is actually going to reflect this exact equation. You want to make sure that everything that you own is equal to everything that you owe and how much your value of the company is reflecting. So this equation is very important when it comes to understanding accounting. This is accounting 101 knowledge that you need to have this in the back of your head. Okay? Any questions? Of course, my accounting class, they already know all this stuff. So this is more geared towards like the other class. So you guys are okay with this? Okay. All right. So now we're going to be actually talking about chart of accounts. So of course, the chart of accounts is the basic necessity that you have to have in order to start a transaction in QuickBooks in general, actually. You need to have a list of all the accounts that you want to place in. For example, I have a transaction, right? It cost me $1,500 to do rent, okay? And I paid it out of my own checking account. I wrote a check. So you need to have a placeholder for each account and, to understand the flow of the transaction, right? I am going to decrease my checking account because I paid something. And where that money's going is towards rent expense. So you need to have a list of every single account that you are potentially going to use for your business. And the great thing about QuickBooks is you don't need to establish a chart of accounts and say this is it. You can always edit the account, the chart of accounts, and as you type in or as you do your transactions, if you do not have an existing account already, you can just do a quick add and boom, you're just adding more stuff to your chart of accounts. So again, that's the great thing about QuickBooks is you have the flexibility where if you don't have a set chart of accounts, you can always add, and add. All right. Now, the only person that actually has permission or actually has, the accessibility to the chart of accounts is going to be the administrative. Okay. Only the admin has access to be able to manipulate and to be able to add and delete or remove accounts from your chart of accounts. All right. A user needs to get the permission from the accountant in order to add whatever accounts that they have. Because as a user, like someone, let's say you're just a bookkeeper, if the accountant knows there is an account that is already existing and the bookkeeper can't find it, well, there you go. If the bookkeeper just adds one in there, the accountant has to go back and fix it. So that's why usually the user has to have permission from the accountant in order to be able to add to the chart of accounts. Okay? Now, of course, how the chart of accounts is typically organized is it is organized based on account type. Okay, so again, we looked at what our account types are. It's going to be these 5 accounts right here. So your assets, liabilities, equity, income, and your expenses. It is only categorized by these 5 types. All right. You can organize your chart of accounts if you'd like to. If you want to have it alphabetically, you can if you'd like. Okay, that's the cool thing about QuickBooks is you can make it the way that you want to see it. All right, and another thing is you absolutely do not need to have an account number. Okay, you don't need an account number for anything. It only helps you organize your transaction easier. But again, if you're dealing with a million different types of account names and accounts, and you're trying to memorize every single name, good luck. All right, that's what the serial numbers are usually helpful. They're helpful, but it is never organized by. It's never organized by the account number, because as you progress in your transaction and you keep entering new and new transactions, you're going to be entering new accounts every time. So it's almost impossible to be able to map out all of your accounts and assign specific numbers. All right. So again, account numbers are not necessary. Okay. But account names cannot be the same. All right. Because that's one thing too. You cannot have the same exact account name. So you may have to do a little variation there. And again, how QuickBooks does this is it gives you a list, it organizes it based on account type, and you also get a quick little view of how much your account balance is. Okay, and that's only for your assets, liabilities, and equity. Your other 2 do not show any numbers because here's one thing here too. Assets, liabilities, and equity are registers. And we'll talk about registers in the second part. Okay, we'll go further down in here. Registers are opened accounts, or also known as your permanent accounts. They have an ongoing number. You cannot close them out at the end of a given period. Where your expenses and your income, they are going to be quick reports. And we'll get to see this tomorrow. Okay, when we build our chart of accounts for the first time, I'll show you and expose you what I mean when you have a register versus a quick report. All right? And one thing that you guys will learn or know now is that you close out your temporary accounts, which are your income and your expenses. So those ones, income and expenses, are what allows you to make a good measurement of profitability. Okay, so again, your permanent accounts are your registers, which is your assets, liabilities, and equity. They are registers because they never close out. They will always stay open. Okay, the permanent accounts, where your income and your expenses are quick reports and they close out. And they're also known as your temporary accounts. Okay? So that's just a good FYI because you will be tested on that actual question is which account types are registers, okay? Or which ones have quick reports, all right? So good FYI, right? Any questions for this one? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay? So we're going to finish this up section real quick. So the next portion is understanding how double entry works. Okay? So this is a double entry. It's where you're utilizing multiple accounts and you're having a significant either flow in or flow out. That's how I understand it. Is a double entry is you're looking into multiple accounts and you're transferring money from left to right, okay? So another good way to understand this is utilizing the debits and credit system, okay? If I'm going to credit one account, I need to debit an equal and opposite amount in another account. So this is applied physics as well, or applied science, right? If you have an action, you need an equal and opposite reaction. So if I have a debit in one account, I need to have an equal opposite credit in another account. And that's going to be called double entry. Okay? And this is where I see here that my debit will always match the total number of credits. And we'll actually get to take a look at that in QuickBooks when we dive into chapter 13, when we do our adjustments, okay? That when you enter in something, QuickBooks will automatically not accept it if you type in an inaccurate amount. If your debits do not match your credits, it won't let you accept the transaction. So that's actually a really cool thing. So it will keep you on your feet as well. Okay, so this is an example of a proper journal where we properly debit our cash and we credit our sales as well as our sales tax. So right here, our debits and our credits match. Okay, now for QuickBooks, you guys are going to be entering in data using the single entry method. Okay, meaning you're only entering one transaction and that's it. Okay, what do you mean? All right, well, here is a perfect example of the double entry, right? We're journalizing our cash and we have our equal and opposite credit for sales and sales tax payable. For QuickBooks, you enter a bill, you're only entering it one way. You don't need to find the actual equal or opposite other account. All you're doing is you're entering it in one single entry. So again, you're placing a bill in there, boom. Where does the transaction go? It's behind the scenes. But how you enter it in is going to be single entry. You're only entering it once. Okay? All right. All right. Okay, so this is the accounting model. So this is how we understand the behavior of every transaction that occurs. If we're dealing with our assets, what's going to happen is your debits are going to increase your assets and your credits are going to decrease your assets. This is if you're taking accounting and you're understanding how the flow of a transaction works. But in this case, when we're doing QuickBooks, it's not necessary to really understand this, okay? But this is something I would like for you to know because it is very important if you're going to be utilizing the accounting equation and understanding how debits equal our credits. You need to understand, well, what's the flow of transaction? So again, your assets are going to be increased by debits, okay? So again, I received cash for a sale. I increased my cash, so I would debit my account. And because I made a sale, I've increased my revenues. I'm going to increase it using a credit. All right. And this is how you utilize this, this normal balance, okay, also known as the accounting model. You use this in order for you to map out your actual journal. So again, here, right, you use the accounting model to map out where your debits and where your credits go, okay? And that's all this really understands is you just have to understand that your assets and your expenses, they reflect the same flow of transaction, okay? They're both increased by debits and they're both decreased by credits. Every single other account, so your income, your liabilities, and your equity, they flow in the opposite direction. And this actually poses true when you apply the accounting equation, right? If you have your debits equaling your credits, which is your liabilities, plus your equity, right? Equity and liabilities flow in the same direction. So if your debits are going to increase, so is your liabilities and your equity, right? There's the formula right there, okay? So that's this one right here. Okay. And then another thing is understanding the cash versus accrual basis. Now, in QuickBooks, you have a choice. You can choose to run your business as a cash basis, or if you would like, you could choose to have it run as an accrual basis. But if you're going to be using QuickBooks for a cash basis, you're going to be very limited on what you're going to be using as far as the software. You're not going to use the software to its fullest because you're probably only going to be using your checking account and your sales account and your, purchases account. Not even. You're only going to be using the bills account and your sales account, and that's it, and your checking account. Because cash basis, right, is pretty straightforward. You're using cash for every single thing. How QuickBooks is geared towards or built upon is on an accrual basis. It allows you to keep track of all of your accounts payable. It allows you to keep track of the people that owe you money. It allows you to make transactions that typically happen, but you don't need to have cash in order to successfully execute the transaction. Okay? And when you start up your QuickBooks, or when we actually build our company file, which is tomorrow, you will see that it will automatically be an accrual basis. Okay? And again, when you are an accrual basis, you can utilize QuickBooks to its maximum, to its fullest. You get to use the purchase orders, the inventory, the estimates, quotes, XYZ. All you get to use every single account that QuickBooks has made for utilizing the accrual basis. So you're more likely to utilize QuickBooks to its advantage when you are on an accrual basis. But if you're a cash basis, which you can do, there is a way where we can set it up to be able to toggle between cash and toggle between accrual. And we'll talk about that in chapter 7, which is going to be on Thursday. Okay? But for most cases, QuickBooks is actually geared towards an accrual type of business, or a way of doing business. So again, you would utilize and maximize the infinite amount of you know, tasks that QuickBooks can execute. So that is a good thing when you are using the difference between the cash basis and accrual basis. So the definition between cash and accrual basis is pretty straightforward. When you have cash, right, when you recognize revenues the minute you receive cash. Okay, so cash is a component of this entire thing. You need to have cash in order for you to recognize anything. All right, and same thing, in order to recognize an expense, you need to have cash in order to pay for it. All right, and that's the cash basis. Where accrual basis, you're going to recognize income whether or not you receive cash. So the minute it happens, the minute you make a sale, the minute you complete a task is when you're going to record your revenues. Okay? Whether you receive money or not. Same thing with expenses. Expenses, the minute that the task is done, right? Or whatever that you've purchased has arrived, you recognize it the day it has been completed or when it arrives, whether you paid or not, right? So that's the accrual basis. So the minute it happens, which is incurred, okay? And yes. So the accounting in QuickBooks, again, everything is happening behind the scenes. You're not actually able to pull up this master, calculations. You're not going to be able to see it because it's hidden within the program. So as you understand entering data or entering information into QuickBooks, you're going to do it as a single entry. So again, how you understand how accounting works in QuickBooks is you're going to understand it as a user to do invoices, bills, entering memos, entering checks. But in the background, it will be calculated using the debits and credit system in the background. Okay? So that's a question that you will be asked as well. You'll be asked how is when you're in the user, does QuickBooks use accounting? And yes, of course, your answer would be yes in the background, right? But another thing is like, again, if you're looking at a user standpoint, no, because you're going to be entering in everything in as a regular transaction. You will not be doing the accounting physically when you're entering in all of your data. Okay? Any questions in regards to all of this information? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause here. And we're going to go ahead and take a nice break.